Let's move all that stuff up to the wall on a double.
Everybody all right?
Yeah, I think so, Jim.
What happened, Joe? What happened? Where the hell have you been?
I had to go.
Well, we all have to go.
Song. Greetings and salutations to all my beloved flying monkeys. What up, King of Disney sports fans? Fuck sports. I played this Friday. I think so. I played a Friday for my comeback and I realized that I had bumper music put to it. I don't know why I'd have a cat hair all over my face. Oh, man. All right. So, 3, 2, 1. Already greeted you. I'll do it again. Greetings, salutations, all my beloved flying monkeys. Bill, good to see you. Quick recap. Really, to me, in relation to this Calvary Chapel, Jesus Movement, Mega Church, Chuck Smith, my pastor, Skip Heitzig, the guy that called me to Christ in 1994, my pastor. I don't have a pastor. I don't have a pastor. In 1994.
I don't either.
Yeah, good for you, pal. To me, the most powerful condemnation is going on and finding. Of course, it's top secret how and where these guys live. Guarantee you. We did this with John MacArthur. Showed one of his several homes. Should I pull that up? To me, an immediate condemnation of whether or not they're sincere Christians. They have no business, period. They have no business, all organized religion.
Well, all you got to do is look at their bank account, see how much they're worth. Right,
exactly, pal. That's where I was going.
And that's a deception. That's the deception right there. Well, a workman is worthy of his hire. Not for that much money.
Good for you. That's exactly where I was going. Had to look up to find out. Here's one of MacArthur's several properties. I'll share this. Are you kidding me? Not just a gorgeous in-ground pool, but a tennis court on the premises. Who the fuck is this guy? This guy is...
But Johnny, why are you picking on God's anointed? You know, the Bible says you should not criticize those,
No, it says
I'm waiting for the raspberry, Johnny. I'm
no,
waiting for the
because I know
raspberry.
what you're doing. I know what you're doing, and I'm going to. You're being a hypothetical, so I'll hypothetically answer you. Jesus Christ said a tree is known by its fruit, and I'm judging the fruits.
Absolutely.
Judging the fruits.
We're
And
allowed to be fruit inspectors.
so yeah, well put. What did we say? This guy, his like, what is his? He's like a 14 million net worth. This guy, 14 million net worth. We just found out. I just looked it up yesterday. Chuck Smith, 19 million net worth at his death. MacArthur supposedly gets a salary of $160,000. My wife is a real physician, a real healer, physical therapist. Not a drug pushing, cut, poison, burn piece of shit. Barely makes half of that. $160,000 from a Christian pastor. Okay, salary. Are you kidding me? I've mentioned this several times. Greg Laurie, pastor. He didn't even have a church. He didn't have a physical location where he has to have some joke of accountability. Where he has to have a hand-picked board like Skip Heitzig.
He's Calvary Chapel's. He's Calvary Chapel's answer to Billy Graham. Billy Graham did not have a church either. Of course, he wasn't a pastor.
Excellent
so
point.
He's
Excellent
classified.
point.
He's classified as a evangelist.
And so, without a physical location, where you at least have to have a congregation willing to pay your bills. Without that, they can fabricate anything they want out of you. They can fabricate anything they want. You're basically a traveling salesman for Lucifer. The perfectly put. And let me tell you something, Bill. Thank you for connecting those dots. I now have to put Greg Laurie and Billy Graham together.
Right. And these crusades are no different than concert tours. Is basically what it is. And they rake in tons and tons of money. They have people investing. They have, they take up an offering. Can you imagine how much money they rake in just by taking up an offering? Some of these people, I've been to meetings, even in the Adventist realm. I've been to their, what they're called camp meetings. And they always fleece the flock. They go out there and go, we know there's $1,000. We know that somebody can write a check today for $10,000 and all this. And all these people need to do is they need to do what we're doing, looking up their net worth and going, why do they need all that money?
It's a traveling roadshow, Bill. It's a traveling roadshow.
Absolutely.
How did we not make that connection before? That it's nothing more. And by being a traveling roadshow, the Hawk is in the house and he's ready for an op. By being a traveling roadshow, you don't have to have any substance. Zero substance. They fabricate everything. They hype it up. They draw them in. And Bill, that's exactly what they do. They get the top names in Christian music to help draw in all the fools so that you don't even have to rely on preaching to attract a phony flock.
Yeah.
It's a big entertainment event.
It's one of the oldest games in history. This goes way back. You're showing Elmer Gantry right there is a prime example. That was back in in the 30s and 40s. I'm not sure. But, it goes farther back than that. It goes back to the gypsies and everything else. They throw up a tent and say, come hear the gospel as we take your money as well. And we leave town. And, of course, they have churches. They prop up the churches and say, well, we need your help. Well, they also need your money as well. It's numbers. It all comes down to numbers and money. Numbers and money.
The model taxpayer funded is crowd funded. We pay to be propagandized. We pay to be quote unquote fed empty calories. We pay for our own what sleeping medicine. Of course, quote unquote we, using the classic we, but no, but and just adding back to Billy Graham, what was applied, what was learned, so the psychological warfare propped up with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany, and then that was directly applied to what became literally the Crusades. We laid out the timeline. Graham's first was it a grand it doesn't matter anyway, but his first crusade being what was it, September, there was a particular date, 1947, no mistake. And then there's no given distinct date for his late night train pajama meeting with Fulton, what's his full name, I don't know.
Fulton J. Sheen.
Thank you.
September 13th through the 21st, 1947.
Is it J for Jonathan? John?
I'm not sure.
Fulton John, Fulton Japanican. Anyway, the timing is, there's no coincidences, right? Or it's just a coincidence.
Shelly, love you. Hello, friends. Love you, Shelly.
Hello,
love
friends.
You. Daniel, I didn't know that you lived in West Virginia, Daniel. Once I make my move, I'll have to see if we can connect. If I ever make my move. Let me tell you something. I don't know how people say, yeah, I just moved. Yeah, I went to tour Europe with no money. Yeah, I decided to get out of here and go somewhere else. No money. This has taken me.
Took a drive across the country. It is John. Fulton Johann Sheen.
You're faster than me, Hawkeye. I just sounded the same time you did.
Hey,
yeah, Darnell, no notification again. And I was forced to wait. I swear it had to be at least 15, 20 minutes. Forced by Odysee, sitting in the queue before I was even available. A dear listener of the show, and also a financial contributor, Laura, had the same problem and said, I complained to Odysee that I'm still not getting notifications. So after all this, after all the exchange, after me being told, hey, give it a good 15 to 30 minutes so that the notifications have a chance to go out, I'm doing that and still no notifications.
I know. I got your Zoom invite before it popped up on the Odysee. Before the Odysee did.
Wow.
Fulton John Sheen. He was born Peter John Sheen. Isn't that interesting? What is he? Some kind of mini pope or something?
Now listen, they very often do that. Listen to me.
After Peter Jean just met.
They very often, good to see you, Brian. They very often have to have a name change to mimic a false radical life change. So the name change upon entering the clergy is a mimicry and a mockery of the radical life change that comes from being born again. Simon to Peter, etc. So, Jeff, good to see you. Shelley, Walter Veith, what? Ad hoc, good to see you. Canada caught red-handed holding Nazi fascists and Marxist Bolshevik war profiteers for the past 100 years. No surprise there. Rich got the notification on Twatter. Twatter, where I get, don't even get me started. All right, I'm going to address Shelley. Shelley had a great...
You mean X? X. It's now Twitter, no X.
Right, I'm sorry. X.
To also auto mimic disease X, which is going to be the population control standard pretty quickly. It sounds like.
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah. Disease Xavier. So
Brand-
we're all
Brandex
Jesuits
is,
now.
Yeah. For the last 10 years.
Daniel's eating peanut butter, plain yogurt, blueberries, and cinnamon as he types this, not to hurt his blood sugar. Good for you, Daniel.
Cinnamon. Add some cayenne. Add some cayenne to that.
Oh yeah, there we go. We had a perfectly sweet meal. Let's just go blow it up.
Yeah, make it spicy.
I've done that. I've done that out of desperation to get my gastrointestinal on track, and it's tough, man. And I'm not good for stuff burning coming in. It's usually burning going out. So, Brent, I'm going to shut up. Give you a second to say hello.
Hey, how are y'all doing today? Glad to have you back, Johnny.
Thanks.
All right,
well,
Brent,
listen,
did you get your car nice and clean?
I got it started. Phase 1.
Phase 1. Yeah, Brent was worried. Brent called me this morning. He was worried. Is there going to be a show today? I don't want to miss out. And I said, well, Johnny just sent me an email, said he was going to be 30 minutes late.
Yeah, I was going outside to wash the old car. I didn't want to be out of comms reach.
Good for you. Oh, Shelley's got a great point to make. We'll throw Walter Veith in the Greg Laurie, Billy Graham doesn't have to keep a congregation going list. I will say that at least of those three, you've got a better chance of getting some kind of substance out of Walter than you do out of Greg Laurie or Billy Graham. You know what? I haven't done that. I need to do that just to aggravate myself because nothing really. It's been a while since I think it's been all of like 13 minutes since I got aggravated. So I need to throw up a Billy Graham sermon just to see how absolutely useless it is. Great point, Shelley. Great point. And while I'm at it, let me throw this up that Shelley shared. This is just proof. Now she's laughing and I'm laughing. I'm not laughing. I'm thoroughly disgusted. But this is just absolute proof of the Jesuit scum that control the New York Compost. They are basically the internet version of Guy Fawkes News with this bullshit. What do you see this fucking story? Pentagram whistleblower claims Vatican helped U.S. retrieve UFO from Benito Mussolini. Are you for fucking real?
They're pushing this stupid UFO, and they're not UFOs anymore. They're called something else. I forgot what it is now, but the Pentagram has been pushing this a lot. Where for years, for almost 50 or 60 years, they always disproven that UFOs existed. Now it's the opposite. Now they're trying to convince you that UFOs are real. What a crime.
Yeah, well, I think they're called flying phalluses. Anyway.
Well, a lot of us think they're just demons posing.
But this kind of are you fucking kidding? And by the way, the compost is just as bad. Very often, it's almost as bad as the daily pornographic fail with its shoulder shit. Shelley loves it when Johnny cracks. And are you for fucking real? You're bad, Shelley. Don't encourage me.
Johnny?
Love you. All right, go ahead, George. Good to see you, George.
We've corrupted Shelley.
So and real. Let me say, pal. It's difficult. I appreciate the effort, and I'm sorry for going after you yesterday. I assumed you're on your phone. You went to the trouble of being on your laptop. Listen, even so, it's still not ideal. We'll accept your laptop microphone as being okay, but when you're inside the closed compartment of a vehicle, it still has that kind of an echo sound to it. So please avoid that if you possibly can. Go ahead, George.
Okay. Couple things. You're just talking about UFOs.
Hey, pal, look closer, please. Look closer. Thank you.
Okay, you're just talking about UFOs or whatever they call them these days. Remember, that whole nonsense started in New Mexico in 1947. But was it Roswell? And of course, just prior to that, you had the Manhattan Project, which was the Trinity, Los Alamos, wherever that is. So, It's interesting. New Mexico did not become a state until 1912. So basically, overnight, it has been used for two of the major psyops of the 20th, and you could say the 21st century as well. The whole development of the nuclear bomb and alien invasions or alien spacecraft. And of course, that's where your buddy Skip Heise, or was he ever actually your pastor?
Yeah, he was when I got saved in 1994. When I was going to the University of New Mexico, I was regularly attending Calvary then, and enjoying it because I didn't know any better. I mean, I probably would still enjoy it to a degree, but as soon as I realize that there's nothing of substance, I'm not being fed. And listen, I can be fed outside of these critical issues that we discuss here, but if they're never touched on, it very quickly will lose my interest. There are scriptural issues that we don't regularly touch that I need to feed me. But listen, to go out of your way not to touch these issues that we cover is unconscionable. It's demonic. By the way, George, 9 months after Roswell, Al Gore was born. No exaggeration. And we covered this. I don't remember who put me onto this. I think it was... Oh, I know. It was Bob Trefez, Bill. It was Bob Trefez that put me onto how...
Bob Trez, yeah.
Yeah. Al Gore was bankrolled by Ukrainian closet commie Jew Armand Hammer. And it's not Al Gore was bankrolled, it's Al Gore's daddy, who was also a fucking politician. Let's remember that. As a matter of fact, we can add Al Gore to the list of feudal elites. I have a list, ongoing list of feudal elites where the power was passed from daddy to son to daughter to brother to sister over elections, right? They're properly elected, right? So Al Gore Sr. was almost no Jezebel, and he, Mark of the Beast, showed he was more than happy to compromise himself as a whatever senator, I guess, whatever the fuck he was, and get in bed with Big Oil. And then the Ukrainian Jew Armand Hammer was helped by that, and the Ukrainian Jew turned around. Let me tell you something. When I first dug this up, I thought the connection was that Al Gore Sr. gave Al Gore Jr. to Armand Hammer to be his little boy toy. And that's still possible, too. I just haven't seen any real evidence of that outside of the connection of Al Gore Sr. was a money pit, was the corrupt cockroach in government that fed Big Oil, because we know how bad Big Oil needed the help from criminal government. So...
And remember the context of the time too. So 1947, so the first Billy Graham crusade. 1948, you have the birth of the World Health Organization, April 7, 1948, Francis Xavier's birthday. You have the birth of the nation state of Israel, May 14, the feast day of Saint Corona.
May 14th, which is traditionally held as Israel Day.
1948.
Which is
that was a busy year for the Vatican.
Before that, it was which Medici? Was it a Maria Medici? This is really weird. I can't even keep track of it myself. Is it possible that good King Henry IV, Henry of Navarre, who gave away his soul to sit on the throne of France, did he marry two Medicis, one after the other? I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. He kicked one Medici to the curb and turned around and married another one. And guess what? It wasn't enough. He was still too nice, too
That's what we're
tolerant.
Told.
He was too tolerant of Christians in France. Really, and Edict of Toleration. Edict of Nantes, I believe it was, right? Still too tolerant. He was murdered on the birthday of the first Medici wife that kicked to the curb, May 14th. So that's what you get for your compromise, Henry. That's what you get. And they dangled that in front of him. Hey, listen, You can be king of France. It's your turn next. You got to give up that Christianity thing. You got to give that up because the whore Roman Catholic Church, she owns France, and you're not going to be allowed to be king unless you bow and drink from the cup of the whore. And what did Henry of Navarre say? Okay. Hey, I still like those guys though. I don't want to burn them alive. I still like those guys. Guess what? That little bit was enough because that's what the whore does. As Christians kind of dilly-dally and dance around, the whore and her minions are vicious, bloodthirsty demons, always have been. Pursued French Christians to America to slaughter them here. Pursued French Christians. As a matter of fact, the Spaniards for Rome slaughtered Huguenots in fucking Florida. That's how vicious. Give me bullshit about the wars between the Protestants and the Catholics. Bullshit. Only one word describes conflict between Christians and Catholics. Slaughter. All right, guys. I want to shut up and let you in as I bring up the next topic. Well, that takes care of that. I wanted to bring up Al Gore, and George with Roswell gave me my segue for that in bed. And let me also mention, what's his name?
Sounded like for a minute there you were saying that Al Gore was an alien from Roswell.
Well, you don't know. Like I said, he was born 9 months after the Roswell incident. He could be. Hammer. So you've got incognito, short-robed Jesuit pieces of shit like Anthony Sutton, who's never heard of the Vatican, but he knows Armand Hammer, the Ukrainian Jew, very well, and showed all of his crimes to bankroll Soviet communism. That's a big, and why? Because Armand Hammer is safe as a Jew manager, as a Jew facilitator. And let's not forget, George, what is Army, little Army Hammer? What is his relation? Is he a great grandnephew or some shit? That's how he got his foot in the door. Little Army Hammer that threatened to eat his girlfriend. Not in a sexual way, in a literal way. And that unnerved her a little bit. So,
well, how about just noting Armand Hammer, born May 21, 1898. So the anniversary dates of Lorenzo Ricci beginning his Generalette, which is I've found to be significant as well. So Lorenzo Ricci, Lawrence Ricci, 18th Jesuit Superior General Connection.
And it's Guy Ritchie that was happy to use a little Army Hammer in Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Who played, and by the way, he played Ilya Kuryakin in the film adaptation. And the original Ilya Kuryakin, David McCallum, just died last week. Yeah. Now, I couldn't find anything suspicious on him. It's probably, okay, there's an excellent chance he's a Freemason, but as I said, I had no proof. However, I know we talked about the old TV show Man from U.N.C.L.E. back from the 1960s because we talked about Robert Vaughn before. So there was two main stars of the series. Robert Vaughn, who played Napoleon Solo, and you had David McCallum, who played Ilya Kuryakin. Now, their boss, Alexander Waverly, was played by Leo G. Carroll, who was English, but he was of Irish descent. I don't know if he's from the Carroll family, and yes, he was a devout Roman Catholic. As a matter of fact, he was named, I believe, after Leo VI, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going from memory here. And Man from U.N.C.L.E. is interesting, which ran originally from 1964 to 68. It just jumped on the spy James Bond bandwagon, which was becoming popular in the 1960s. Now, Robert Vaughn, as I said, we talked about his famous interview he did with Bill Buckley on Firing Line in 1967. I believe the date was July the 8th. Well, I guess sometime last decade, prior to Vaughn's death, he was talking about how he got the part of Napoleon Solo on Man from U.N.C.L.E. Forgive me for boring you with all these extraneous details. So the original working name for the TV series Man from U.N.C.L.E. was Solo. but they couldn't do that because that was the name of a James Bond character. And Sam Rolfe, if I'm not mistaken, was the original producer of Man from Uncle, and he was friends with Ian Fleming. And so they shot the pilot for Man from Uncle the weekend of November the 22nd, 1963, the same weekend Jack Kennedy was killed. So they had to halt production on it, and the pilot was not released until well into 1964. Well, so NBC was trepidatious about pursuing Man from Uncle because they were thinking they might run into legal action from Ian Fleming. Well, Fleming died, I guess, of a heart attack on August 12th, 1964, so that cleared up that situation. I'm not saying anything untoward happened towards him, but his death was awfully convenient. And so you can catch this in an interview with Robert Vaughn. There's like a video channel that interviews famous actors from the past.
Yeah, and I will say that, as I remarked before, George, the debate that Vaughn had with Skull and Bones, Knight of Malta, CIA, William Francis Buckley. Is his brother a Jesuit? I know his brother is even more devout than him. Same thing with Alexander Haig. The brother is even more devout. But the debate that they had, they brought up some of the details. And it was Vaughn that through excellent knowledge and the balls to tell about it, mentioned the role of the Catholic Church in the Vietnam War. So it's definitely worth a watch.
And I had
well, could I get okay?
Hawk and then George.
So Armie Hammer, great Armie Hammer's great grandfather is Armand Hammer, and just noting, just looking at the Armie Hammer wiki page, Armand Douglas Hammer. So his first leading role was Billy Graham in the 2008 film Billy: The Early Years. Interesting breakthrough for young Armie. So,
and I wonder what his, is his, lower half of his left ass cheek, is that still Jew enough for him to have a foot, or his great granddaddy bankrolling Soviet communism, is that more than enough shirt tails to ride into a Hollywood career? I'm sure. All right. Anybody else? Anything on this before I go back to my docket, my dossier? Just a refresher from last time, so I can finally get rid of this. Bill, did you have something to add?
No, go ahead, Brand.
All right. I wanted to just a refresher. I had this. We've talked about it before. I'm going to mention it, and then I'm going to kick it out of my docket. Of Allenby, Lord Allenby, whatever this inbred, this limey inbred, pardon me, for all my beloved flying monkeys. You're not limeys. The pieces of shit that are machine shills, they're the limeys. Allenby. So the all of the blood and treasure. Go ahead, Hawk.
No, just Robert Francis Vaughn. Robert Francis Vaughn.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, listen, that's not guaranteed to be a Catholic homage to Francis Xavier, but it's odd, and I'm pretty sure that Vaughn did not have a lot of residue on him.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he was nominally Episcopalian.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Catholic light is close enough. If you love all that, the liturgy and the vestments and all that, you're basically Catholic. So all the blood and treasure needlessly being destroyed in World War I, all of that needless, and the Freemasonic Protestant British redirected their efforts and put Allenby in Jerusalem to exploit the opportunity to kick the sexual pervert Ottomans out. And what did Allenby? I was just thinking about this morning. Where the fuck does Turkish bath come from? Turkish bath comes from how the Ottoman Empire just relied on sodomy. Vlad the Impaler was given as a prisoner to the Ottomans, him and his brother. They were both brutally sexually abused, which turned Vlad the Impaler into an absolute demon. An absolute demon.
Which you covered in Romans and Mass Destruction, Volume 1.
So why a Protestant Christian British military exploiting World War I? What did Allenby say after he kicked Ottomans out of Jerusalem? The Crusades are finally concluded. Wait a minute. Why would a Protestant British general say that? It's proof. Thanks, William. Love you, brother. It's proof that Protestant England is owned by the Roman Catholic Church. Jesus saved Darnell, my brother from another mother. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
I'm all right, man.
All right.
Listen, first of all, I apologize. It's just something that I put on. You know, the Under Armour that Hawkeye has remarked, and his founder and connections, and anyway. All right, so I had that in the docket. Anybody want to get anything more on that before I go to another topic?
I wanted to comment just a little bit on. I wasn't able to come to yesterday's show, but Hawkeye was talking, and he sent out. He did a YouTube on the weather surveillance radar, the WSR 88D. Is it okay if I hit a little bit of that right now?
Yes, you have permission to pull it, George.
Basically, I was a radioman in the Navy, not just a Navy SEAL, but my basic job was a radioman. So I was a little bit of a communicator, and the Navy didn't have we had corpsmen, in the Navy, but in the SEAL team, there was nothing in the Navy that did small unit type radioman school to work with the small radios, the PRC 77, the new satellite radios that were coming out, the helmet radios. So I wound up going to Special Forces Communication School at Fort Benning, and I didn't go through the whole SF part. They just sent me where I had to learn, I believe it was 10 words, send and receive of Morse code. And they had me do their final training exercise where we jumped in Texas, and for 3 weeks set up these HF radio antennas, hung them through the trees. They give us new coordinates every 3 days, so we'd have to move every 3 days. And basically, long story short is that the satellite radios, you had to get a coordinate to get a ping off the satellite to make the radio work. The or the UHF antenna was just line of sight. The HF antenna would go, 300 to 500 miles. So this technology is limited, so whatever that weather surveillance radar, it has a limitation. But basically what they're doing is every technology that comes out, they're closing the noose, this worldwide surveillance, worldwide keeping an eye on us, this one big brother stuff. So, I just wanted to tell Radar, thanks for putting that out there. But the technology is slightly limited, like Johnny said about the shots. There's not nanotechnology in every single shot, but some of the preservatives that they use might make us a walking antenna. So whoever these bastards are, puppet masters, we know them as the Jesuits, but they utilize a lot of other, elite skull and bones, Masons. They use them all to create. Satan wants to be like God. God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and I forget the other thing, but Satan wants to be like that. So he's creating this worldwide matrix of surveillance.
Yeah, the first Rojo Chaptel is when you type in WSR 88 Delta radar, the top photographs are already copyrighted by Alamy. There's the first Rojo Chaptel. That's right off the bat. All right, this is from Shep. And I don't know where I archived this. I don't know that I have. This is, let's never forget Let's never forget this. Let's never forget this. Let's never forget how these two Freemasonic cockroaches got in bed with this bloodthirsty demon to carve up the world. Never forget how these two Freemasonic cockroaches, and as we mentioned earlier, this fat cockroach over here on the left was, I don't know what they call it, Vice Lord of the Admiralty or some shit. Ran the Navy for World War I. Was personally responsible. This fat cockroach here was personally responsible for the almost 2,000 slaughtered aboard the Lusitania. Personally responsible. On purpose. Pulled back. She was supposed to have an escort. Pulled back. What's the name of the company that the Lusitania was under? See if this comes up.
The White Star?
Cunard. The Cunard line. The Cunard line. Cunard told the Lusitania she had 4 boilers. You're only going to run on 3. Go nice and slow. Run off some fireworks. Turn all your lights on. Don't zigzag. All that same shit. Same thing I told the Indianapolis, by the way. No exaggeration. Just dangle them out there to be slaughtered by the enemy. Okay? This fat cockroach knew. So they got together and they carved up and turned over, and everywhere this demon sent his minions, they suffered by the thousands. And after the Whore of Babylon set Germany up, the fall was demonic, brutal, and wiped out by history. From Eisenhower's Rhine Meadow death camps, where he starved to death thousands of German soldiers, starved them to death, to incidents like this. Thanks, Shep. 30 January 1945. The largest loss of life at sea ever. No one's ever heard of this. Motor vehicle Wilhelm Gustloff. An unarmed vessel torpedoed by the Soviet scum. Now, back in the day, they talked about U-boats and U-boat commanders being gallant and pulling up. And when you come up to an unarmed vessel and you have to take the unarmed vessel because it's cargo, etc., you pull up and you give the captain notice, hey, put your boats down, get your people on the sea because we've got to scuttle your vessel. No, not these Soviet demons. No warning, ship goes down. What's the loss of life here? Largest loss of
9,400.
What is it?
9,400.
9,400. 9. Unbelievable. Go, George.
Okay. I forget what his real name is, but there's a German-born actor named Eric Braeden. He was probably best known as he's a soap opera star. He was in Titanic. He was in the old series from the 60s, Rat Patrol. He was actually on that because he was born in what was then East Prussia, or he was born in Prussia. I know this is completely immaterial to what we're talking about, but I just thought I'd share that factoid with you.
So you have a German actor that was born on the Gustloff? Is that what you're saying?
No, he was actually born in what used to be Prussia, but he was actually on the Gustloff.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That's decent enough segue. That's fine.
He was like 4 or 5 years old. And so he went on, I don't have any residue on him, but as I said, he went by, in the 60s, he went by his German name. and he was portrayed as Nazis. Rat Patrol.
His real name was Hans George Gudegast.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Bill. So, like around 1970 or so, he decided to go by Eric Braden, or Braden, or however you say his name. So then he became a star. Anyhow.
So by the way, I didn't ram this home. The Gusilov was carrying mostly women and children, civilians, hospital patients, the demonic Soviet scum. No warning, sink or send her to the bottom. Almost 10,000 dead. No one's even heard of this vessel because the Germans were all Nazis. The Nazis were all evil bad guys. And the origins of that was the Whore of Babylon punishing, never forgetting, 1517, hundreds of years. The whore never forgives, never forgets. Centuries later, punishing the homeland of Luther.
Well, and the Gustav was basically a smaller floating Dresden, if you will.
Well done, George. Yeah, good facsimile. Good facsimile.
And of course, that actually took place like a couple weeks later. Now, I picked this up from our buddy Zach Hubbard. What is it? Lupercalia, which is an old ancient Roman holiday. It takes place between the 13th of February and February the 15th. So basically, right around Valentine's Day. That's when the firebombing of Dresden took place. And I know I mentioned this to you before, and most people have never heard of Dresden. They might have heard of Dresden and a few other places, but it's hard to reckon how many people died. If you look up how many people died in Dresden, they'll say about 25,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and George, let's not forget, George, they were burned alive, Inquisition style. It wasn't just, let me close this. Strategic bombing of World War II is an absolute fucking war crime. An absolute war crime. That is it's the indiscriminate slaughter of civilians. Strategic bombing is the indiscriminate slaughter of civilians. You see at every single one, you see all these, the Lancaster and the B-17 Flying Fortress, the B-29 Flying Fortress. These are weapons of war crime. Big four-engine bombers. These are not bombers that are designed to give specific tactical support. These are bombers that they're designed to fly 30,000 feet and indiscriminately slaughter. Okay? While we're on that, let me go ahead and bring up from notes that I had. I'll go ahead and segue this. Freemason James Jimmy Doolittle. A Freemason before the fucking Doolittle raid in 1942. What was the Doolittle raid? It was nothing more than terrorism. It was the indiscriminate bombing. The only thing that mattered was to drop bombs anywhere in Tokyo. That's the only thing that mattered. That's fucking terrorism. The only thing that mattered was to slaughter civilians in Tokyo. And he did this on 18 April, the day before the anniversary of Loyola becoming the first superior general in 1541. 18 April 1942. Absolute nothing more than terrorism. And how did the Japanese respond? The Japanese weren't much better. The Japanese went full demonic on the Chinese, who gave aid and comfort to the Doolittle raiders after their raid. Because they couldn't get back to their aircraft carrier. They had the ditch, the Chinese helped, and the Japanese were demons. Mass murder, torture, rape of Chinese civilians. Over and over. Absolute. So you had one group of demons stirring up a hornet's nest of another group of demons. And what do we have? Somebody trying to jump in?
if I could say, now you're talking April 1942, so 4 or 5 months after Pearl Harbor. Now, if you just go back a few years, back to December of 1937, you had the rape of Nanking. Now, I know I mentioned this before, several years ago. Now, for what it's worth, Nanking was almost exclusively Protestant. Shanghai, which is further south, was almost exclusively Catholic. It was untouched. In roughly 1 month from mid-December 1937 to mid-January 1938, the Japanese killed probably at least 300,000 Chinese, all of whom were some form of Protestants. And of course, there's a reason why they call it the rape of Nanking. That's of course, that went on. But as I said, I know that was somewhat tangential to what you were talking about.
Right. Hey, George. So, who blew Freemason Jimmy Doolittle for the Jews at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer? 30 seconds over Tokyo. Who was it that played the key role, the starring role?
Was it Spencer Tracy?
Well, wow, George. I would not have guessed this had I not known.
Okay, I'm just going from memory.
Roman Catholic Spencer Tracy. Outstanding work, George. Roman Catholic Spencer Tracy.
Well, and he also went to the Jesu. He was a member of the Jesu Church in Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm sorry. That's his friend. I'm conflating him with his friend Edmund O'Brien.
Right.
How about I'll add 6 years prior to this film, Spencer Tracy, Boys Town, 1938 film.
Absolutely.
MGM.
Also, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Why are the Jews putting out this Catholic propaganda? Who runs the world?
Can I'll also add, while we're close to it, a couple points ago. Yalta, the conference wrapping up February 11th, 1945. Remember, we have a 2/11 or February 11 date, which also has a connection to the Lateran Treaty, where it can be argued the papacy, the seeming mortal head wound was healed, which began February 11, 1929, and February 11 has a distinct connection to 26 Jesuit Superior General Vladimir Ladachowski, who began as generalate February 11, 1915. Remember, Ladachowski, potentially the, what do you say, or orchestrated one, in part, World War One. What do you call it? The October Revolution, 1917, Russia, where the Gregorian calendar came into effect, and then also World War II, and then Ladachowski also died in 1942. And of course, the generalate was taken over by John Johnson. Another name for Guy Fawkes. Anyway, just want to hit that February 11th, Vladimir Ladachowski date.
Good for you. So not a lot of residue on Van Johnson. Turns out Van Johnson was a secret closet homosexual. Worked his way into the movies on his knees, I guess.
So was Spencer Tracy as well.
Really? Okay. Spencer Tracy, closet homosexual? No kidding. Does that not? Well, listen, being devout Catholic and homosexual, nothing could send you higher and farther. Go ahead, George.
Okay. So I just wanted, you're talking about 30 seconds over Tokyo. Where I guess Godzilla must have been sleeping on the job.
Yeah, no, he showed up after the A-bombs, George. That's the whole point.
Oh, okay.
All right. Hey, great. I had an opportunity to segue and cover the terrorism of Freemason James Doolittle. Like I said before, guys, when you get wind of a key figure being a Freemason, okay, for instance, Audie Murphy. Chances are excellent that Audie Murphy became a Freemason after his notoriety. Doolittle was given his notoriety by the Freemasons. He was a Freemason before the raid. Murphy, by the way, nominal Protestant, but with Catholic roots. Right, George? Wasn't Isn't that the case?
I guess, but you see, the thing is, um, I don't mean to sound like an apologist for Audie. It's just like, how should I put this? He survived the meat grinder of World War II. He was a front cover of Life magazine, and he was a national hero. He got like 10,000 awards or something like that. He got every award imaginable, from France, from England, from the United States, and so they said, "Hey, you know what? Let's turn him into a movie star. We'll turn him into a B-rate movie star. But we'll send him to Hollywood, polish him up. We'll let him live with James Cagney." I mean,
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Right. Roman Catholic James Cagney was, and who knows what was going on there. Brought him in. I think he was, listen, first and foremost, they rode him for war profiteering. And they murdered him when he became a war profiteering liability. In the 70s, he began to discuss how post-traumatic stress disorder had made him suicidal, how many times he thought about taking the 1911 he kept under his pillow and putting it in his mouth, et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as he started to get serious about that, especially on the tail end of the Vietnam meat grinder, that's when he had his airplane accident. So I think that guy was they were just riding him for the most part. To me, you can't go wrong. They actually put him in prison because he and a buddy of his beat the shit out of some cockroach they caught abusing his dog. That's just one of those side stories that.
Sounds like a John Wick plot. It also, Audie Murphy, remember, also one of the primary sources for David Morrell's John Rambo, Rambo never has the name John Johann. John's given in the film version of the character, but David Morrell never necessarily discusses his particular religion, but in his writing covers topics of Fraternity of the Stone, Brotherhood of the Rose, Masonry, Rosicrucianism, and also Rambo's character in First Blood, released in 1972, has a childhood that involves being an altar boy, Roman Catholic altar boy.
Well, no surprise. You've got a Stallone with his mommy's witchcraft, New Age Catholicism in their background.
This is pre-Sylvester Stallone's entrance and as the character.
Okay, good for you.
Could I just say something about Audie Murphy? He basically made 3 films in his career. He did To Hell and Back in 55, The Red Badge of Courage, 51, 52, and then he made one Western, which they just simply replicated several times. So if you've seen one Western on Audie Murphy, you basically have seen them all. And in all fairness, had he been a little bit more discriminating with his roles and maybe taken a few more lessons, he could have been a decent actor, because he had, I know this is immaterial to what we're talking about, he had an actual pathos about him, which people could identify with, and he is sort of but that's completely off topic. But
all right, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fair enough. Yeah, the guy had, I think, like I said, I think the guy was sincere, but fleshly and lost. So had charisma. They rode him and his story for war profiteering. That is billions. That is absolutely murder worthy. Just ask the family of Pat Tillman. Are you willing to murder even notable people in order to continue the flow and not staunch the flow and for $1? Anyone that gets in the way of war profiteering, you will be shredded. All right, let me pull a George while we keep going and getting some topics done here. I'm excited for that. This is from Gene. Fantastic work, Gene. Absolutely fantastic work, Gene. Did you know that Kamehameha and Hawaii all have a strong Protestant roots? And what did I tell you about the vicious persecution of the Whore of Babylon? In 1839, again, Roman Catholic France sent a warship to force Protestant Kamehameha to stop persecuting the Catholic clergy and force them by their military might back into Hawaii, called the Laplace Affair. The fucking French, and of course the United States government, not only let the fucking French do it, they joined them, because Hawaii wasn't a protectorate at the time. Fantastic work, Gene. This goes into the Lahaina false flag dossier. Fucking France, the bitch of the Roman Catholic Church, the bitch expended military might on behalf 1839, extended military might on behalf of the fucking Vatican to force Native Hawaiians to let these boy-raping clergy back into Hawaii. Great job, Gene. All right.
Slow down, do they?
Go ahead, Brent.
I said they never slow down, do they?
No. But what upsets me, Brent, is how they get a free pass on, separation of church and state. I just heard several Adventists saying that, mindless. Separation of church and state, separation of church and state, breaking the Constitution. They made the United States. There's no longer separation. Shut up already. You want separation of religion and state. Your religion, their religion, separation of religion and state. There is no such thing as a secular state. The government will get its values from some place. Hawk, you trying to say something?
Yeah, you would the link you had pulled up about the 1839. What was it called? The Roman
Laplace Affair, if I'm saying it right.
And what was the name of the ship? There was a picture of a ship, the Artemis, the Artemis, and just noting that Artemis is goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, nature, vegetation, childbirth, care of children, and chastity. Artemis is the daughter of Zeus, and Leto, twin sister of Apollo. 1839.
Why would fucking Roman Catholic France have a hard-on for Greek mythology, just like modern Romerica? You wonder. Luciferian scum. The Artemis. Are you fucking kidding me?
Just like the fire, remember, just revisiting that, the fire is starting August 8th, the feast day of St. Dominic, founder of
yes,
Dominican
revenge. Order. Revenge upon the Protestant Christian natives of Hawaii, King Kamehameha's progeny. Darnell, do you have anything on this? Did you watch this video on how the military is setting up to reinstitute the draft?
Yeah, I didn't watch the video, but I did read over an article about military reinstituting the draft, or unless I sent it to you. If I sent it to you, I did watch the video. I know it's been a while since we've had a chance to talk, but I'm going to put it
16 hours ago. How much information are you covering?
No, that wasn't a video. That was a Substat. Yeah, that wasn't a video. It was a Substat.
You posted this. Yeah, you just posted it.
Yeah, I was saying I read the article. I didn't watch a video.
Okay, I just talk to me. Just talk to me. What's the article?
Yeah, basically the Army's put out in a journal a report talking about the war in Ukraine and the lessons learned, and they're basically referring back to old wars like Vietnam and like, hey, we might just have to bring in partial conscription to make up for the manpower that we're losing because we aren't getting a lot of new recruits, and we're spinning through a lot of troops, and we got a lot of issues. They're softly messaging we want to bring the draft back, which is really
do it, please. Help precipitate more unrest, please do it.
That's crazy. Will they draft the women?
You have to. Let me tell you something. You grab any woman on the street, you tie her hair into a bun, boom, she's a man now.
And
she can do everything a man can do.
You remember in MASH where that guy, was it Klinger, was acting like he was a woman, Get Out? Well, you can't do that now because they're pulling the transies in. So.
Making them generals. All right. I guess John Paul's busy putting his life back together. Haven't seen or heard from him for fucking ever.
Yeah, he's lucky he got out of New York just in time because of the flooding.
I didn't even.
Manhattan Island got flooded out by all the rain they were getting.
Yeah, I had a couple
he's
of email correspondences with JP. He said he was doing good, and he's in transition of moving from one place to another. So, but he answered 2 of my emails and said he was doing good, and he said he appreciated, us getting hold of him. I say us, me, but I wouldn't be here, if it weren't for y'all. So.
No, no, I do. I appreciate you keeping track of them for us and for me.
Speaking of MIAs, what's happening with Doc?
He's on his way back. He is getting ready to return. Should be back this coming week.
I see.
And I'll continue to keep mum about his absence and whether or not he was trying on women's underwear himself. All right, so I don't know. I'm going to hit this story because it's in the hopper, and John Paul's not here. It is what it is. You guys had some back and forth on this. New Orleans district attorney fights terrorism with AI spycraft. So in other words, they precipitated. Now remember, all of these city cesspools are gun fucking free zones. And it's not enough. They are actually precipitating and facilitating gun violence with these cesspools. They then say, we need more. We need more Big Brother. We need more gun confiscation. We need more tyranny. We need more thug cops. New Orleans, in particular, appears to be, they really utilize minorities. Everyone that I see in this story is a minority. The district attorney is black, Jason Williams. They're all far left minorities. And that's Jezidoo right there. Over and above whether there's somebody like Queen Muriel Bowser, the Queen of Washington, Phallus Columbia, who is a far left black female Catholic. How much Jezidoo is there? A far left female black Catholic. Muriel Bowser there. And so, again, gun-free zone, and they have this drive-by shooting, Dijon Dixon. What? Are you kidding me? Was Grandmama watching a mustard commercial while she named her child Dijon Dixon? Are you fucking kidding me? Let me remind you. This divisiveness, this is encouraged by the whore Babylon. Where minority communities are told you have got to be in your face. You've got to wear your color on your sleeve, in your face, black names. Pull a meaningless name out of your ass as long as it sounds black. Meanwhile, the Bible shows you how many times. So powerful. There are passages in the Bible that make no sense whatsoever until you pull out the cipher of what the names in a lineage mean, such as Noah down to Adam in Genesis 5, such as the 144,000 of Revelation. Crazy, don't know what they mean. And then you discern and define and find out each name has a special, precious meaning to it. And it actually forms a gospel message. Now, bring that forward to how, for instance, the black community has been encouraged to jettison the Christianity that kept it alive and kept it healthy and be separate. For decades, Malcolm X to Cassius Clay to all these prominent blacks who eschew Jesus Christ and adopt Muhammad because that's what it means to be black, right? I have no better authority than Darnell. Darnell, do you want to, on this, any of that on life being black or this New Orleans?
Yeah,
cesspool?
I mean, that's one of the greatest tricks played as far as the history of the Christian faith, to put this white long-haired Jesus on it and say, see, it's white. And to act like, oh, well, see, these guys were white who did this, that, and the third, and totally ignore the history of the Christian church, totally ignore all the Africans that were involved in the early church. Just totally run over that, ignore it, just say, oh, it was all white slave ships. Yeah, all bad whites. And it's like, no, don't talk about the Roman Catholic angle. Don't talk about the Jews financing it. Don't talk about any of that. Just say, oh, it was just all white and all, that's Christianity for you.
Yeah. And that, go ahead, Darnell.
Yeah, I was going to say that, just like I was telling one of my sons recently, a lot of stuff in history where they talk about not just slavery, but other events in history. They talk about Christian this, Christian that. It's like, wait, these were Roman Catholics, man. But you don't say that,
Yeah, and of course, Islam in Africa played an extremely vital role in the slave trade. Very critical role in the slave trade.
Yeah, they were there earlier.
Just demonic mockery. Just a demonic mockery. No different from wearing your pants halfway down your ass, which in prison says you want to be sodomized. And then you do it on the street to prove your street cred. Just a mockery, just an absolute mockery for the black community.
Yeah, but I don't let anyone off the hook when it comes to something like slavery, because it was a trade. It was a slave trade. There was hand in hand, payment for bodies. And they knew, you're putting on a ship. And slavery in Africa was not the panacea that people want to act like it was either.
Right.
Whole thing's a mess.
And if I can interrupt 1 second, there's a huge difference between even biblically indentured servitude and basically when somebody was conscripted into to train in a job or what we might call an apprenticeship, versus what the Israelites went through in the Exodus. And so that word has a whole lot of meaning to it. So one of the favorite movies I've ever had was Amazing Grace, the story of William Wilberforce. And I don't know, I just always enjoyed that movie. So it might be a ton of Jezidul around it. I just have been naive to that.
There probably is, but on the surface, it's the story of the British born again Christian that ended slavery for England. And of course, when we're talking about slavery for England, we're talking about a nation that brutally colonized on the backs of slaves all over the world, as did France, as did Belgium, etc., as did Italy, etc., especially in Africa.
It wasn't just the blacks that were slaves too. The Irish, anybody was, it's just that
anybody poor, Bill, anybody who was poor.
Yeah. But they always focus on the black people because it,
for the sake of divisiveness, for the sake of divide and conquer.
Right.
But for intellectual honesty, it's like that. There's a difference between stem cell research and embryonic stem cell research. I mean, words have meaning. They can take stems out of your body and spin them, and whether you believe in that or not. But either way, there's a huge difference between chattel slavery, when you put somebody in iron leggings and you give them no path to freedom and you breed their children
right.
It's breeding cattle.
Let me flesh that out.
Not
to step on you, pal. Let me just flesh that out. So back in the day, there was an avenue for you. If something happened and you were so much into debt, you could give yourself as a servant. You could make a contract to your debtor to work off your debt as a servant for them.
Right.
And it was one step above a job. It was more than a job, because I assume you quit the contract, I guess, you're still considered a slave that can put you in a prison or whatever. And they had, Christ talked about debtor's prison. That's different from that you were collected. They swooped in, they black bagged you, they tied you up, and now your life is, without your choice whatsoever, you are now working as a slave for someone else, and you had no choice in it. That's this. So basically, you're saying there's two different things there.
There's something else that especially Christians need to understand. There's a difference between Roman slavery and Hebrew slavery. And the instructions to slavery in Scripture under the Old Covenant, under the Hebrew slave system, you were almost part of the family. You were adopted basically into the family as a servant.
And you're supposed to get your freedom back after 7 years, Darnell.
Yeah.
And given the choice at the end of your servitude, if you wanted to stay, remember was it taking the tool of the adze and piercing your ear to the,
right.
So life has been so good, I don't want my freedom. I'm going to stay here forever.
That
is biblical, so-called biblical slavery. And then here with pick your film, the what do you call on the plantation, the what would you call the head man, like
Taskmaster?
I feel like I'm losing language. What
slave master or the overseer?
Taskmaster.
That is what's interpreted as biblical. What it's, I guess, in part what the Bible says.
Yeah, and in biblical slavery, you could get an inheritance. You could actually inherit from the family, which is totally unlike Roman slavery and American chattel slavery, which are totally different systems. And people get it really twisted when they talk about slave mentioned in the Bible by someone like Paul as a bondservant. They want to compare it to chattel slavery or Roman slavery, and it's like, no, you're totally comparing it to the wrong system to begin with, to even understand what the man's saying.
Yeah, I've never heard it mentioned as the delineation between Roman slavery and Hebrew slavery, but I mean, it's a difference that makes a point. But it doesn't matter whether you're a Chinese person enslaving a Filipino person, or a Mexican enslaving a Costa Rican, or a white dude from the South enslaving somebody from up north. If you take away somebody, if you brand them and take away their humanity and their dignity, and you breed them as their little cockroaches, and you basically give them no way to get out, that's demonic chattel slavery. And there's a huge difference between that and indentured servitude. That's all I'm trying to say.
This is all great conversation, because how often has that been thrown in your face? You're a Christian. Oh, the Bible's cool with slavery. No, the Bible acknowledges the reality of servitude, indentured servitude. The Bible does not put the thumbs up to human beings being captured against their will and forced to work for their lives as an involuntary slave.
Yeah, it's that same could be said about marriage between a man and a woman. This idea that apply the same filter, the same wash on what's supposed to be, or what's raised up as biblical marriage. This under the
my wife's not my property.
Yeah, or the ball and chain.
Hey, to this day, Narina in the chat says the child labor in Switzerland, China. You pick the nation where they can get away with it, and they do it. And who is driving it? Who owns it? Who controls it? All of the shit coming out of China. Who runs that? The fucking Catholic Church. Yep. Walmart. All the shit, the exploitation. Who runs that? Great job, Bill Hughes, on the CIA drug connection to Sam Walton. And who's above that? The whore Catholic Church and the Jesuits.
And then back to this idea of what we consume in North America, like how many products designed in, one product in particular, designed in California, assembled, manufactured in China.
I'm hard pressed to think of anything. You can go through your house, and you would be hard pressed going through your own house and finding something that wasn't made with Chinese slave labor, courtesy of the Jesuits.
Absolutely. Didn't you write that in, what was it, Disciples of Ra, where they put nets outside the building so they couldn't even commit suicide?
Yeah, at the Apple factory that weren't allowed to commit suicide. They jump off the building and try to kill themselves. They catch them in a net and send them right back to their workstation.
Back to work, yeah.
Hawkeye, I had this. I had it. I just, when I heard you mention this again, that the George Floyd incident took place on the date, on the 14 October date that Arturo Sosa became what number Superior General?
31. No,
31st?
George Floyd birthday. 14
Oh, right,
October.
birthday, not the incident. The George Floyd's birthday. All the more reason that this is absolutely premeditated. They picked the guy whose fucking birthday commemorated the rise of the Superior General Arturo Sosa,
which we covered yesterday. Remember when Arturo Sosa stepped into the generalate. Remember, back to this idea: 5 living popes for approximately 6 weeks, 14 October 2016 to 26 November 2016.
You know what I think in relation? I don't know that it was so much they needed the 5 brains to plan the corona hoax. I think they needed the 5 different personalities to exert authority all over the flat earth. Who didn't break ranks? A handful of good men, most of them minorities, by the way, most of them black guys who stepped up for their small third world country and were murdered because they questioned. I got to pull up the list. The only one that I have committed to memory was John Magufuli, Roman Catholic John Magufuli of Tanzania, who punked them with the testing and was murdered, kidnapped and murdered, and they had the balls to say it was the corona hoax. He fell on a knife 14 times. So that, to me, they used those 5 different personalities to exert influence all around the flat earth. Hey, here's the Pope himself. Here's the Black Pope himself. Here's the old Pope himself. Here's the new Pope himself. Going to have a person-to-person talk with you. You're going to fall in a line. You're going to be in power. I'm going to make sure. You're just a nobody right now. You're going to be in power when we pull this off, and you're going to toe the line, right? Yes, Your Eminence. Yes, I will. That's what Anatoly is telling me they needed 5 popes for in 2016 to set the stage for the corona hoax. Not so much the planning as the forcing no one to step out of line around the world. No. Who didn't? To this day, down to the lowest level, mayor, sheriff, police, no one questions the hoax. No one. You may have a handful of brave sheriffs to say, I'm not going to enforce the mass order. That's the most rebellion they get, and that's nothing.
I would say back to the idea, though. What we've have been living through the last 3 years was 500 years in the making.
Agreed.
Literally, from what led to the Council of Trent. And remember the rise of Girolamo Fracastro, personal physician to Paul and Alessandro Farnese, Paul III. Syphilis, the move of the Council of Trent because of a particular disease outbreak, and then this explosion of what would become eventually germ, as we understand as germ theory. 500 years in the making.
Yeah, good for you. By the way, going back to that. New Orleans district attorney uses artificial intelligence to fight terrorism and to further enslave the populace of New Orleans. That article was from, go ahead, Darnell.
Yeah, I was going to just talk about that. I mean, they're basically setting people up with like, oh, we're going to fight crime with this. We're going to make you safer with this. And people are not realizing that we're being set up. They think it's for their safety.
They created the cesspool. They set it up, and then they provide the answer. That's that article that is basically a promotion. It's a phony warning, but the article does nothing but promote this concept. This is from the Wall Street Urinal, and John Paul, I busted John Paul's balls about it because he sent just the link, and I said the Wall Street Urinal is paywalled, bro. Can you send the entire article? If you took the time, this is for everybody, all, not just the team members, all of my beloved flying monkeys. If you're sending me an article that is paywalled, whether you had to use up a free view or not, you know it's paywalled. You need to copy and paste everything into either a word processing document or an email. Get everything. Get the link, get the phony journalist, get the date, get as many photographs as you can, put it all in one spot so that I don't have to go anywhere to cite this as a journalistic source. And John Paul was on his phone.
Even if you have to screenshot it, even if you have to make a screenshot.
Yeah, I'll do screenshots. It's a lot of work for me to turn a screenshot into a document that is word searchable. I got to do a lot to that. So if it's really important and there's no other way, like John Paul was on his phone, it was hard for him to do it. You know what? He went and did it anyway. So much love to him. And in this bullshit propaganda, they find a defense attorney who does what? Defends it. The defense attorney, you're expecting some bleeding heart leftist is at least going to be good on civil rights. Now, the defense attorney defends it, Judson Mitchell, and what happened? He's a professor at Loyola University in New Orleans. What a surprise. Wall Street, secular Wall Street Urinal. Why would they do that? Oh, it's the Jews. It's the Freemasons. It's the Illuminati. Give me a fucking break.
It's
Palantir. I give you a fucking Palantir technology.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Darnell.
I'm gonna post a related article to that talking about autonomous drone that for cops to see at night in the dark. But what they're doing along with this AI, and they're doing this in New York too, they're putting out drones that they're saying, oh, they're just going to do surveillance. They're just going to help the cops do their job. You know, they're not armed. They're not going to beat you. It's just kind of get it out there on the streets, get people used to seeing these electronic things out there, and then it'll be bear down on harder later. You'll be like Star Wars with those drones with the guns coming up, telling you to put your hands up. Eventually,
the insurance companies are increasing the amount of drones they're using also. So between the police and the insurance companies, and they're like, oh, we just we're checking our property. We need to look at the drone. The real estate people are using the drones.
We will enslave ourselves to any degree necessary to save a single law enforcement officer's life. Turn over all of your freedoms just to save the life of a single. And I'm not saying I'll give a fuck if they die. The sad. There are, amazingly, we've got a friend that's trying to become one. There are decent, ethical, moral cops, but the system guarantees they are the criminals. The cops are the criminals. The judges are the criminals. The prosecutors are the criminals. Brett, you were going to add something else?
Yeah, I was going to ask George though about he mentioned asking about Skip Heitzig and wanting to know your like when you were working with Skip Heitzig, but that was a question I had.
Was he ever my pastor? Was the question?
Yeah. Like, but I used to listen to a lot of Skip Heitzig, man, and that guy was an incredible teacher. He studied the Bible. He had some backstory history to the Bible that I would sometimes say, man, like the word I used to use a lot was there's an anointing on him. There was an anointing on his teaching. I'm not sure where he was getting his, who was controlling the earpiece in his ear, but that joker could flat teach scripture in a way that just it really blessed me and a lot of times. I'm not giving him a pass, but
It brings up a very valid question. It brings up a very valid point. Can someone be powerfully used by both Christ and Satan? I mean, I'm probably being uncharitable. Has Skip Heitzig been powerfully used by Satan? That's probably an exaggeration. But can somebody be powerfully used? Can somebody be powerfully used and not be completely intimate with Christ? Can still be withholding, can still be strongly in their flesh, or maybe even partially in their flesh. Listen, $12 million, if Skip Heitzig is worth $12 million. Look, I've got many sources saying that he left Albuquerque with $500,000 in cash and prizes, and he made his own board vote that for him. That just can't be Christian. He
definitely appears to be super corrupt now. And I hadn't listened to any of his recent sermons, but did he start out that way? Did he, in the trial of fire, when Jesus and God is trying to refine him, did he go over to the dark side? I don't know how he started out, but now he seems to be completely corrupt.
The California thing blowing up, I mean, could very well have been a call back to get right. It was very embarrassing for him and should be. So
it looks like he's paid now. So I don't think he came through that refiner's fire on the side of the Holy Spirit. To me, I don't see it, but I don't know how he started out, because there was definitely an anointing on the stuff he was putting out.
There's no doubt. That's what brought me to Christ, is his teaching. That's what brought me to Christ, is his teaching. So
Paul reminds us in the Bible that if they're teaching the right gospel, and I forget if it's in Corinthians or Hebrews or wherever, but Paul says, if they're teaching the wrong gospel, stop them. Interfere with them. But if they're teaching the right gospel, whether they know Christ or not, leave them be, because there might be some fruit yielded through that.
Yeah.
Sorry to not know the exact scripture, but I'm paraphrasing.
No, I got you.
But the thing with a lot of these Calvary Chapel, they may teach a great sermons and stuff. Now, my experience with
a little higher. Hey, Bill, can you up your volume? Maybe move closer.
Okay, how's this? Does this sound good?
Better. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know what I'm having trouble with here, but the thing of it is, with John Corson, to me it was a little opposite. He was very scholarly and everything, but the thing of it is that he was such a popular pastor, and that's the way it is with a lot of these Calvary Chapel guys, is that they were like Raul Reese and a lot of these people. When you talk to the people who go to that church, one lady was saying, "Oh man, Raul Reese is such a great pastor," but there was just no substance. To me, there was no real meat. To me, he would do, with John Corson, he would do verse by verse expository, and then he would try to interpret what it said, and then he would share a story that in his life that related to what we just read in the Bible, and that was it.
How different is that though than the what would be their title, bishop, who like the scriptures in Latin and then interpreting, and basically being the interpreter for, this is what the scripture says to the laity. What's there's no difference. I also just wanted to mention, it just reminded me of something my father said. My father had a contentious at times relationship with, mostly. I had no idea that Billy Graham died, and I remember my father had mentioned hearing him say, when Billy Graham died, and then right after that followed it up with two of the most powerful men in the world, the Pope and Billy Graham. I'd never ever heard that. I never thought of it that way. It wasn't even before me. But to hear a man who is so removed from any of this subject matter, again, he was a brilliant. What do I call my father? A lot of the time was a brilliant just a brilliant source of some just that kind of information. So.
All right. But I haven't taken this down because I wanted to validate that I had archived it. It's still amazing to me, the find by the Ghost Ninja that Skip Heitzig was invited to the Amy Sacha Coney Island Barrett crowning there for the Orange Phallus. And this is local ABC Albuquerque highlighting only Heitzig, Lewis Skip Heitzig, and completely ignoring in front of him is Franklin Graham, and right next to Franklin Graham is some kind of weird Roman Catholic priest.
And is that to Graham's left in is it red or is that Paula White?
I'll bet you it is. Good guess. Good guess.
I don't think I've ever mentioned. I also too have a connection to Calvary Chapel, to a Calvary Chapel. So it's fascinating how here we are together in part.
Powerful. And listen, let me tell you again. Let me say this. I said this several times before. My journey, my growth as a Christian has been a long and arduous and painful one because of Calvary Chapel and it's pulling its punches on the truth. It took me decades to come to a full and proper understanding. For too many years, I believed Jesuit heresy because they came from Chuck Smith, Chuck Missler, and Skip Heitzig. And that deeply enrages me. The harm that they did in giving cover to the whore. Chuck Missler especially. Chuck Missler went to great lengths. He is judged now. I do not believe that guy is saved. I believe that guy is burning right now. That's why he ran. First he went to Coeur d'Alene, and then he ran to New Zealand. Why would you leave Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, to go to New Zealand for your retirement? An absolute Jesuit enclave. Just ask Jacunta Ardern, who's now in her pasture, the whore that she is, at Harvard, the Harvard whore, given a reward there. No guns in New Zealand, and they still didn't trust the New Zealanders. They moved her to fucking Harvard. Anyway, the harm that they did, the harm that the Calvary movement has done to my growth as a Christian deeply enrages me. All right. This comes from Blue 12, Green 12, who uses Stumble. I don't know why they use Stumble. God bless them. I'm going to continue as long as my videos go up on Stumble and get 10 views here and 12 views there and maybe 100 views. I'll continue to upload videos on Stumble, and especially if I've got one or two. This is like Yahweh with Abraham. Well, if there's only 20 good people in Sodom, would you? Well, how about 10? How about 5? How about 2? How about if there's only 2 people watching your Stumble? I will spare my Stumble account. Great find.
I was watching you on BitChute for a long time. I'll admit that.
I'll continue to, as long as they're there, I'll continue to use them. This is Guy Fawkes News San Francisco bragging about the untouched church in Lahaina. Great video example of who is, it's a miracle. Look at this. And right next to the burning ashes, look, what a miracle. And still smoldering. What a miracle. It must be Our Lady of the Worthless miracle.
I saw a video news report about this that said even the flowers inside were not wilted. Literally.
They used the Pedro Arrupe method.
The petals were in the shape of the Queen of Heaven. Unbelievable. All right, moving right along as we start to close out. How much time? Nah, we still got a little bit of time left. Let's see here. What else do I have to say? This is great. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I wanted to do... Yeah. Okay, so Darnell. This started with, okay, so poor Russell Brand. Speaking of stumble, poor Russell Brand, who has stumble crowned with millions of subs and views. Russell Brand and Steven Crowder, the Canadian that loves America more than Americans. Poor Russell Brand being needlessly beaten down as a sexual harasser. Why? Because the guy is boring. Because the guy is boring. He is supposed to be our go-to source for an alternative news and media, and he's a joke. He's boring. So let's go ahead and give him some credibility by attacking him. And then Darnell showed this. This is just so typical. Who was the co-host that had to leave, that was forced out? It was a stand-up comedian that was forced out. That it was his co-host that went on with Michael Malice and did that interview and showed that how Crowder was a schizophrenic whack job. Anyway, it'll come to me.
Yeah, I'm checking if I can find that. I remember it, but it was a while.
So,
wasn't he a co-host with Steven Crowder for a while?
Yes.
I can't remember his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
So, all right, the very first thing that nobody is asking, I need to ask. I can only hope that his pregnated wife, his prego wife, is the one that released the Ring camera, audio, and video of Steven Crowder being a cunt to her. How are we watching this is the question. Of him sitting there, look at this cock with his cigar. Really want to shove that cigar still lit up his ass.
To do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There's no groceries.
So I assume that it is his wife that released this to embarrass this cock with a cigar.
Yeah, it's they're kind of going through and I don't know if they divorced, but it was supposed to be
perfect.
Like
She's carrying his spawn. She's carrying his spawn, and they're getting ready to divorce. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. There is the icon of the MAGA fucktards. The Q-tards and MAGA-tards.
Of a Christian marriage. But remember, it's questionable too. Jesuit theater, anything on a screen.
And
this idea
where Crowder graduated from.
Go.
What's that guy's name? Was it Hillsdale College or one? No. It's one of those so-called Christian colleges, and I can't remember.
Hillsdale's the conservative college that you always hear talk about.
Right, but Prager. He's a graduate of Prager, and we know about Mr. Prager, don't we?
That's online, right? That's online. Prager doesn't have an actual physical.
Yeah, that's not like a graduate from. You don't get a degree from there. It's just online videos.
But didn't we have a lot of Jesuit on Prager, and didn't he also talk about?
No, the Jesuit he's a conservatard Jew. And the last big thing that we covered on him was, as far as he was concerned, listen, if it's porn or adultery, go porn.
Right. I was going to go there.
Leave it to a Jew to come up with that kind of. And let me tell you, I'm so glad that he crashed and burned on that, because his previous big litmus test was to put out the Jewish, Orthodox Jewish brilliance that if a stranger is drowning next to your dog drowning, who would you go and save? And if you don't save the stranger, there's something very wrong with you. Guess what? That's not even a consideration. I will step on the stranger's head to help me get to shore faster with my dog. So fuck you, Dennis Prager, you unsaved conservatard, you false sage, okay? You false sage. Let me just put it. Salem Radio Network, the Jesuit scum at Salem Radio, blew Dennis Prager because he's safe for them as a conservative Jew that is in no way a danger to the machine.
Yeah, and PragerU, I'm trying to find it, but one of their head people is really tied to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, in some way or another. I need to find that. But I also wanted to mention, I put in the chat relating to Crowder an article about him exposing himself at work.
Well done. Well done. Shelley, Shelley's point. Look at that fucking home. Look at what being a whore for the machine. Now, big picture here. Steven Crowder's job. Steven Crowder is a much bigger piece of shit than anyone on the far left because his job is to anesthetize the dangerous right. His job is to make sure the right stays asleep. And that makes him a much bigger piece of shit than Nancy Pelosi, as big a fucking piece of shit as anybody on the far left. He is a much bigger piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, here's our model of again another Christian man. So trained at Guy Fawkes News, but also remember his mother French Canadian, and French Canadian don't have it specifically in print, but Roman Catholicism.
Of course, absolutely. Own Canada, from the beginning. What is this fucktard? Yasha sub. What the fuck is Yasha Substack? Is that some fucking Jew go-between that you had to put your fucking watermark? That's not, you didn't get this from Ring. Okay? Are you fucking kidding me? I'll give you Yasha Substack. Good for you. Shelley, look at that. Look, and meanwhile, good guys like us have nothing, and regularly get crushed into nothing.
So back to this idea, though, what is the mark of the beast?
There you go. It is not to survive. How many Christians believe the Jesuit heresy shit that without the mark, you won't even have food to eat? No, dipshit. No, it is to be prosperous. The mark of the beast is to make you wealthy, not keep you alive. The mark of the beast is to make you wealthy. If you, especially, let me be, as a Christian, talk to Christians. If you are in Christ, you are safe. You have more than your food and your daily necessities. More than that, guaranteed. And if he wants you to go through a trial, he will lovingly, carefully have every aspect of the trial thoroughly controlled. Okay? The mark of the beast is wealth. Maybe that. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, which brings up a good point of when you go through that refiner's fire, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out of it more broke. And I'm laughing, but I'm dead serious. How many of these idiots from, the COVID hoax, Peggy Hall and the end of COVID and all these bastards, man, every one of them pieces of shit. And I'm not knocking all these new age people, because I'll try to live a healthy lifestyle. I eat garlic. I try to buy organic when I can, but you'll go broke doing that stuff. But all of them in that end of COVID thing, I was going to have a question about David and Dawn that, I really like them. I think they are genuine people, but I'm not a new ager, and I'm not going to, I'm a Christian first. I'm first and foremost a follower of Christ. But how many of those people at the end of COVID brought us anything that we can use to go against what we're going through right now?
Good for you.
They're all making money hand over fist after COVID. And the people that are bringing you the truth, and I'm not blowing you, Johnny, here, but the people that brought you disciples of Ra are some of the people that actually, brought you the truth about all this crap. They're broke. They're more broke, and their books aren't top selling, on Amazon.
They get a Brazilian. What was it? What was
Anarchapulco? They get to go to Anarchapulco.
But a Brazilian is
buenos dias.
is released in his neighborhood, running around like somebody.
Yeah, right. A Brazilian knife murderer. Pardon me, a Brazilian murderer that knifed his girlfriend to keep her shut about the murder he did in Brazil.
40 times.
A demon in front of her daughter that she had, I guess, out of wedlock and brought the daughter along, right? Something like that. Imagine that.
Yep.
Running around loose in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that bitch Sam Bailey too. She's making money hand over fist, hand over fist, hand over fist. She says, "Oh, I'm not vaccinating my children," but are Dawn and David, Sam Bailey, Peggy Hall, all these crusaders, they're like are freedom and against the hogwash and ending COVID now. Did any of them? Where did the disciples of Ra go? Where we just went through the largest hoax in the world, and where is the disciples of Ra? If they're wanting truth, why don't they include some other truths?
Here are the striations. Love you, brother. Here are the striations. At the top is the official, and that's 85%. 85% toe the official ridiculous bullshit lies. 85%. Underneath that is like the majority, 17% of the compromisers, the Del Big Dicks and the Robert Francis Adultery Juniors, the compromisers who don't question the system. And then under that, a small minority of those who throw the bullshit flag on the entire system, and they are almost entirely, I would say Peggy Hall is the bridge between the two. They are almost not, and there are no Christians in the lower strata, with the exception of Peggy Hall having one leg in both strata. All of the phony Christians, the Sherry Tenpence and the Carrie Medejas, the clowns, the frauds, the Luciferians that throw scripture in your face to show you how Christian they are, they're all compromisers. They don't even question the machine. They don't question the existence of viruses. They're in that upper, that middle strata. And then underneath, those that give you the closest, that tell you the fraud of viruses, they're all going to condemn your soul. They're all hyper new age. I repeatedly see this fucking new age army doofus, Alex Zek. He is the headliner, especially for this end of COVID shit. You type in end of COVID, it's Alex Zek, Alex Zek, Alex Zek. Just bold new ager. Who the fuck? How many new agers did you remember in the fucking military? I don't know anybody in the military that was a fucking new ager. Nobody from 20 fucking years. Never did I find some patchouli oil fucking new ager in the military. Where did this fucking clown come from?
Right from the CIA.
Yeah, right. And all of them, just like you said, pal, making money hand over fist.
Money hand over fist. Yeah. And I have a warning to you, Peggy Hall. If somebody's watching this, you cannot have 1 foot in the world and 1 foot in the kingdom. You're going to choose. You're in a refiner's fire. If you are a believer, you're in a refiner's fire, and you better come out on the right side. And as a Christian, I have a right to call out another Christian. So if you're not a Christian, if you're a New Ager, I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking to these people that are making hand over fist on the back of Jesus Christ. You better come out on the right side of this COVID thing. And you cannot have 1 foot in the world and 1 foot in the kingdom.
Amen. Let's remember Peggy Hall and admitted when she called out the Catholic Church for not being Catholic enough, admitted that up until just a few years ago, she was a devout, mass-attending Catholic. What a surprise. And the only time that ever came up is when she called out the Catholic Church for not being Catholic enough because it's Catholic to fight abortion, right? Right? Like I've told you many, many times, bullshit. The Catholic Church could end abortion in the snap of Teresa of Thanos' fingers instantaneously. Never will do it. Will never do it. Lives off the bodies and tears and blood of children. Bill, you trying to jump in?
Yeah, isn't it the same thing with Church Militant? I mean, they're a Catholic organization and they go after
got his name from the papal bull that instituted the Jesuits. What do you think's going on there with Michael Voris?
Absolutely. It's the same thing. It's just like they're
Okay.
exposing the Catholic Church for not being Catholics.
A declaration of war that's never been rescinded. Declaration of war. Regime
On us.
Militatis Ecclesia.
On us. All right. So,
500 years ago.
all right. What?
How about this? And we're slowly closing in on the 500th anniversary of that. We passed the 500th year of anniversary of 1517, and now we're closely coming up to the 500th year of a couple some specific Jesuit dates. Of course, in the not tomorrow, but in a few years.
I have this on the side, George. I don't know if you have anything that you can add. Once again, before we close out the Skip Heitzig affair, as I've said many times, a board of trustees and/or a board of directors. Who the fuck said that the chief executive handpicks the board of trustees so they're a bunch of fucking yes men? One of the members of the Calvary Albuquerque board of, what do they call them? Do they call them board of directors? I don't fucking know. One of them was Army General Gregory Zanetti. National Guard Army General Gregory Zanetti. And he apparently, born again Christian, trying to do the right thing, actually was on the wrong side of the Skip Heitzig affair and tried to call Skip out for being not very Christian with the way he handled things. So sounds like, even though with that Italian last name, you're fully expecting a Jesuit or three in his woodpile. And what do I find looking him up? What do I find looking up? He ran for governor against the hyphenated Catholic female, no hyphen Catholic gun grabbing twat. He was a no-show. He ran. Let's see here. Who is it? Ballotopedia? He didn't even get the, he ran as a Reptilican. And Mark Ronchetti. What, you want to bet there's a Jesuit in his woodpile? Mark Ronchetti was you're not gonna come close. It reminds me of the New Jersey election. You've got a right-wing Italian Catholic offered up as the no-chance Reptilican. And then you've got the far-left demon rat that was going to win all along. That's Ronchetti beat Zanetti. Ronchetti beat Zanetti. And what do I find in Zanetti's resume? He was the fucking how the fuck as a National Guard general was he the deputy commander of the Joint Task Force at Guantanamo Bay? How is a born-again Christian, first of all, how is a born-again Christian managing to get to general in the Army with all that's wrong in the National Guard, the military, and the Army? How is a born-again Christian rising that high? How is a born-again Christian Army general, National Guard general, taking on deputy commander at Guantanamo Jesuit Inquisition Bay?
Johnny.
Go ahead, George.
Okay, just want to say, I noticed that he got an MBA from Boston University, not to be confused with the Boston College, which is Jesuits.
Pretty damn close. Right, I saw that too, George. Good for you.
Okay, so that is secular. However, all the colleges in the Boston, Mass area, Boston University, Wellesley, there's like 5 or 6, they all have a matriculation agreement, meaning that if you're accepting to one, you're accepting to all. They also have library privileges.
Hey,
so
George, how many incognito Jesuits are running those Boston schools, giving plausible deniability. Okay, well, it's not Boston College, it's secular Boston University. How many incognito Jesuits are there, just like Sister Kathy Sesnick teaching in civilian attire?
Yes, and you also have Brandeis, which is there, which was he was a Supreme Court justice. So, and this is something you've been talking about for years, because to the average layperson, a place like University of San Francisco or St. Louis University, those sound like secular schools. You have to do some digging, but then they obfuscate it even more. You have Georgetown University, which is Jesuit. Then you have Georgetown College, which is, I believe, supposed to be Baptist somewhere in Kentucky. And they do this on purpose.
Yeah, pal. Listen, overall, I think the biggest problem here, I would love to have a guy like this be one of us. You've got a National Guard general who was a member of the board of Calvary Albuquerque, and I'm seeing all these concerning red flags. Rojo Chaptals. I'm seeing all these concerning. How the fuck are you the deputy fucking commander at Guantanamo fucking Bay? How are you a born-again Christian and you are the deputy fucking commander at Guantanamo Bay? How do you salute and drive on? Are you just completely insulated from what really goes on there?
Yeah, because especially with all those photographs that came out where they were torturing these people.
Do you call it masculine compartment and military compartmentalization?
You have to, and no different from Skip Heitzig. No different from the compartmentalization that Skip Heitzig must have gone through to lie to themselves. This is just how it works.
Yeah, what mental reservation? Sophistry, casuistry?
Crush the tiny, quiet voice of the Holy Spirit. Drive on. Hey, this is my job. Listen, I have to be a general. I'm not going to turn down being a general. I'm not going to turn down ruling the Skip Heitzig empire, mega church empire.
He's probably got that a mistaken view of Romans 13.
Also too. Yeah, that's a great one. Noting, okay, I don't know a lot about the badges. So the badge on his left, over his left arm, and then also too, I'm not able to find, but just note the ring on his right hand. Not that we can discern it, but it does look suspicious.
Let's pull that up again. That looks like some kind of a college ring.
Okay.
So, it's an academy ring.
So just for clarification, he got his undergrad degree from the United States Military Academy. He got his master's MBA from Boston College, and he got his another master's from Army War College.
Yeah, thank you, George. Hey, at least, and again, look at this guy. What a lot of these military clowns, I'm sure you've seen this, Brent, especially these ring knocker scum from the academies. They will use their proud ring knocker ring as the excuse to put on their left hand so that nobody knows. They keep their options open, just like the Adventists. Keep their options open. Nobody knows if they're married or not. At least this guy wears a wedding band.
But it is an interesting presentation, though. Putting like the ring, it is a focal point.
Front.
It's being put forth. And then go to the badge on his left.
Oh, that's the New Mexico National Guard. It's the Zia, which is a secret way of promoting the sun worship of the Roman Catholic Church. How do you think the Zia got blown up and pics of all of the Native American symbols in New Mexico? They honed in on the Zia as the what it is that embodies New Mexico, and they throw the bullshit that, oh, this is whatever Indian tribe. This has nothing to do with the Catholic Church. This has nothing to do with the Knights of Malta. There's nothing to do with Roman Catholic sun worship. Let's see where they claim the Zia comes from.
Yeah, just like what's the word? Conspicuously used the Argentinian flag on a soccer ball, the thumbnail for my the next rad WSR 88D with the Jesuit sun, which is a part of the Argentinian flag, and then of course which Pope, our current white Pope, our quote unquote our current white Pope from Argentina.
Yeah, I didn't know that Zia stood for a supposed indigenous tribe. I'll bet you they completely fabricated this shit. They don't exist today. Spanish explorer de Espejo first encountered them in 1583. When did they go extinct? Yeah, I bet you they completely fabricated this.
Yeah, went extinct.
And of course, the Zia is red. Of course, it's red.
Yeah, blood red. Four fingers.
On the same similar yellow background to the golden keys of the papacy.
Okay, so were they wiped out by getting smallpox blankets?
Yeah, right. I'm looking the sun Zia symbol, the solar symbol. Red circle, groups of rays, blah, blah, blah. 4 points of the compass, 4 seasons, blah, blah, blah.
4 cardinal points.
Yeah, right. How did they, let me see that they died off before anybody was even aware of them, and I'm going to throw the bullshit flag on the entire fucking tribe. Let me see if the internet. When did the Zia die off? Pakistan. They don't even have it. They don't even bring it up. Yeah, Pakistan. I'm telling you, they fabricated this.
But I was going to ask
1689. They all died out. Proof. That goes from a rojo chaptal to a bullshit flag. Never fucking existed. Never. You pull out a bullshit tribe that supposedly died out in 1689 as the embodiment of New Mexico. Fuck you. Bullshit. It is the Roman Catholic Church hiding their Luciferian Maltese shit. Bullshit. Fabricated. Bullshit. Just like Art of War. Just like Art of War.
And this is in the time frame of Eusebio Franciscino.
So, Johnny.
Go, George.
I'm sorry, I've never heard of these people. Is it possible you did have these people who live what is now New Mexico, who were just mass murdered? They said, oh yes, they got smallpox or whatever. But
Agree. Hey pal, I covered this a little bit in Disciples, not to step on you. I covered this a little bit in Disciples of Ra. How they use a smallpox blanket as a bullshit excuse to bolster virus lies and cover up the unbelievable demonic brutality of the Spaniards against these native peoples. Just unbelievable. I mean, like Japanese level. Just cut people up to check the sharpness of their swords. Read that, couldn't believe it. I thought I was reading about the Japanese demons, and instead sicking their dogs, feeding their dogs on the babies, cutting the babies out of the wombs of the mothers. Just absolutely demonic, erased from history because they were Roman Catholic conquistadores. Finish, George, and then we got to close out.
Okay, so but a more modern version of this would be remdesivir, chemo, midazolam. So that is how you bolstered this whole viral false flag from a few years ago, and which is still going on. As I mentioned, it was the other day in British Columbia, I guess this Monday or tomorrow or Tuesday, they're going to be requiring masks again in healthcare settings in British Columbia. And they're already doing that in certain places in California, or they will be doing that in certain places in California. So this has been going on, 4 or 5 years, however long.
Milking it, bringing it back. Milking it, bringing it back. The resistance needs to start here. Do not let them do 2.0. By the way, excuse me, David in Scotland asks, Goldsby in Scotland asks, weekend warriors, is this a full-time federal thing? There are specific jobs, especially when you get that high up. There are jobs these weekend warriors can take that are full-time federal employment. That's an excellent question, David, from a guy in Scotland. How the fuck is New Mexico National Guard deputy fucking commander in Guantanamo Bay? He took that because once you get that high up, there are jobs you can take where you get a fucking full-time paycheck. Or you do a deployment. It may have been a deployment. That's probably what happened. And let me tell you something. For a fucking guy like that, that's not a deployment. That's a vacation. You're a fucking general. You're a brigadier general. And that's a Cuban vacation. Meanwhile, good people who really deploy, their lives are bled from them. I've told you this before. Princess Bride, the Jesuit movie, where they torture what's his name, and they pull a lever and they burn a year off, and all they can do is cry. That's a fucking deployment right there. That's a fucking deployment. Burn a year off of your, take it out of you. Hair on my arm stands up as I say that. Yes, there are special jobs you can take where you get fed up because there's no line of demarcation. National Guard's a fucking joke. They are not state-level military. They are another adjunct, another arm of the federal government, the national government. All right.
It seems like during the war, especially Vietnam War, most of the people that were deployed to Vietnam were National Guardsmen.
Right.
What happened to the Army and the Navy and the Marine Corps?
You know what, Bill? Bill, that was a fuck move. That was a fuck move. Keep it off the board. We need more bodies into the meat grinder. We don't have enough from the active duty. Let's go ahead and help ourselves to the National Guard. And I've said this before. How many natural disasters were many times worse? Floods, shit that the National Guard is supposedly there to help you with, and you can't because they're fucking deployed. That happened over and over, and still happening to fucking today. It's not over. It's not over. Still going on today. Still going on today. All right, quickly around the horn.
Why? I mean, you're supposed to be, National Guard was created to guard our country from attack. But
National Guard was supposedly the state militia. Listen, there is no such thing as a Second Amendment militia. That's you. You are the Second Amendment militia. The National Guard has been usurped and it's owned. It is just an arm of the federal government. All right, quickly. Bill, anything else to close out with?
Just a couple of things. I have more, but for the sake of time, I quickly want to thank you for the book, Eaters of Children. I've read through a quarter of it already. And a lot of the things that I've found in there is interesting because one of the things I wanted to highlight, I don't know if you've covered this in the book yet or not, but I found about this was in West Virginia, Fayetteville, West Virginia, where the Sauter family and their missing children that were supposedly lost in a fire, but yet there was no bones found or anything. And what I thought was interesting is the family were devout Roman Catholics. And I was curious, were they a sacrifice? Were they really kidnapped? Or was there some kind of cover up there or what it was? I thought it was an interesting story. I don't know if you covered it in
I did not, pal.
Children.
But just like the little Roman Catholic boy that was the first one that was eaten, how the whore enjoys eating her own. How the whore enjoys eating her own. The little Roman Catholic Jesuit, the little boy from a big Roman Catholic family in San Francisco who was going to the school from his Jesuit parish on whatever, the house he lived on Freemason Avenue, who was the very first milk carton child until they booted him and decided, you know what, we need to put a little Jew boy there instead. Covered that. I did cover that instead.
Isn't that not far from Bohemian Grove? Wasn't there a
Well, the Bohemian Club is headquartered in San Francisco, and the Bohemian Grove is further north.
Right.
Okay, can I address that? I think so. You're Bill and Johnny. You're referring to Kevin Collins, um, and that was actually Masonic Avenue, San Francisco. Just for clarification.
Thank you, Judge. Well done. All right.
Okay, so yes, there's the Bohemian Club in San Francisco, and then there's the Bohemian Grove, which is about an hour or so north of San Francisco, fairly close to where I live.
All right, George. We need to close out.
Okay, there's an article I want to share from you or share with you from 2020. I don't have the date. This is from Texas A&M Galveston student newspaper from 2020. As I said, I don't have a precise date. It's by John Vander Wouter. The dangers of anti-vaccination movement, social media influence. I won't read the whole thing. I'll just read the first paragraph. By now, we have all heard the recent news of measles outbreaks throughout the United States. What you may not have heard is the extent to which the population of the anti-vaccination movement, anti-vaxxers, has significantly increased in the past decade. The Centers for Disease Control, CDC, reports that the numbers of unvaccinated school children has quadrupled since 2001. So the previous 19 years. As I said, this article is from 2020. One of the things he mentions is that in the state of Texas, where he lives, something like 60,000 school-age children have not been vaccinated. And back then, there was something like 300,000 homeschooled children, the vast majority of whom were not vaccinated. One of the things he brings out is one of the major canards that the so-called anti-vaxxers like to trot out is the nexus between the MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella shots and autism. That is based on according to him, that's based on a completely fraudulent report based on British scientist Andrew Wakefield did, I guess, in 1998. So they said that Wakefield basically fabricated his numbers. Now, there's a problem here. People, so-called anti-vaxxers, are not just adverse to shots because of the correlation between them and, say, autism. It's all health issues, cognitive being one of them. But basically, almost all your allergies, peanuts, shellfish, whatever, are due to vaccines. Now, cognitive issues such as autism, those are byproducts. That has never been disproven. But if you look, now if you forgive the cliche, causation does not mean correlation does not mean causation. I understand that. But if you look at children who've not received any shots, by almost every metric, they tend to be way healthier than the children who've been injected. Whether you're talking about the aforementioned allergies, asthma, having lupus, you name it. Almost none of them have any type of these issues. Now, granted, they could develop problems because of diet, but generally speaking, as I said, children who are uninjected tend to be way more salubrious than their injected counterparts. So there seems to be this massive cognitive dissonance. And let me just say, I know we brought this up years ago. If your traditional shots were so safe and effective, why do the pharmaceutical companies, at least here in America, why have they been almost completely indemnified for the Childhood Vaccine Protection Act of 1986 and the adult version of the PrEP in 2005? If these shots have been so thoroughly tested, why do these companies like Pfizer and Moderna need complete legal protection or have almost complete legal protection?
I just posted in the chat a link to the control group. They have shown through evidence that all manner of vaccines cause all manner of illness. And I've seen one of the heads of the group in an interview who pointed out that children who have never had shots are able to usually eat more junk than kids who do take shots without having the adverse side effects as quickly.
So when you say junk, are you talking about junk food, fast food?
Yes, junk food. Basically, their point is whether it be junk food, whether it be exposure to high electromagnetic fields or what have you, the vaccinated have a lot more trouble than unvaccinated, no matter what shot you're talking about before COVID shots.
All right, listen, we need to. So I'm going to stop there, George, because we're trying to close out. I'm already over time. Anybody else? Brent, anything to close out?
Good, thank you, sir.
All right, Darnell.
I'm just going to drop this in the chat. Shelley posted it in Gab. It's to help everyone remember who is really behind pressing for invasion through immigration around the world.
Give me that again.
It's a recent address from Francis on the 109th World Day of Immigrants and Refugees, basically promoting all manner of invasion in your nation.
There must be not a corner of Romerica that does not have an illegal alien Hispanic Roman Catholic influence. There must not. I was driving through Virginia, pulled over at a stop and listened to in the Poison fast food joint a Hispanic female manager speaking in fucking Spanish over the intercom to the customer. I'm doing my best to run from it, and there is no place you can run. They have used this as such an all-encompassing, successful weapon that there must be no place you can go. No place. And to ride that with the bullshit of, we just need to compassion. We need to look, they're hanging off the barbed wire. There is no fucking barbed wire. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. All right. Hawkeye, anything to close with?
Yeah, just noting. So the creation of the Center, the CDC, Center of Disease Control and Prevention, formed July 1, 1946. July 1 being the American feast day for Juniper, back to Juniper Ocera. So significant enough. And the attributes to Juniper Ocera, who was beatified, 25 September 1988 by Pope St. John Paul II and canonized by Francis, September 23rd, 2015. We're familiar with that photograph where Francis is standing in front of the line, everybody behind, and they're standing before the statue. I can't remember the name of the building they're in, but July 1st in the United States is Franciscan habit wearing a crucifix, holding a crucifix accompanied by a young Native American boy. Those are the attributes of Saint Juniper Ocera. And on his feast day, the creation of the Center for Disease Control and quote unquote prevention creation. So anyway, just adding that.
I am I'm listening to you and simultaneously reading. All right, listen. I'm over time. I'm gonna have to fucking pare this down. I'm over time. It is what it fucking is. Pause, George. They interviewed Zanetti about his role at Guantanamo. Let me tell you something. This guy is like a robot. This guy's a robot. This guy accepts satanic shit and doesn't even bat an eye. Doesn't even think twice. He got a daily brief, the BUB, the battle update brief. He's not a fucking battle. Look at what they do. They weaponize. You're a fucking prison warden. And they use battlefield terminology because these poor bastards in this communist Cuban prison are the enemy. The enemy, the dehumanized enemy. Look what he had no problem with. Good morning, sir. Chief Simons, Camp 6. We have 112 assigned, 112 present. Last night, detainee 765 requested onions and parsley on his salad. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking lying, mealy-mouthed motherfuckers. Meanwhile, the CIA is cutting these bastards, pulling these bastards' fingernails out, and you give this kind of full bullshit, phony detail of what number 765. Do you see how they dehumanize these poor bastards? Do you see? And you accept that. The detainees are a number. God forbid you should have the slightest bit of compassion for these poor innocent bastards. The purpose is yank these innocent men out of their home and torture them into hating America and fueling the fucking bullshit war on an emotion. And this is the born-again Christian who was a board member for Louis Skip Heitzig. I'll bet you this fucking guy never once saw a cell. I'll bet you this fucking guy lived his life as general grade royalty, and all he fucking did was get briefings. I'll bet this fucking guy never once went down and had a face-to-face to see these poor bastards into the conditions that they were in.
Was he there at the same time as DeSantis?
Pretty good bet, by the way. Anybody that wants to know how it is the hero governor of Florida, how did he get elevated? He's a Roman Catholic. He was the fucking lawyer that gave the legal excuses, the Navy prosecutor that gave the legal excuses for why it's okay to torture at Guantanamo Bay.
And him and Nikki Haley were the shining stars of the debate last week.
Yeah, no surprise. Go ahead, Brent, finish.
Well, DeSantis is no combat veteran either, man. My right nut's seen more combat than
He's a fucking lawyer. He's a fucking lawyer. And yet, what did I show you the other day? I showed you the picture of this fucking clown with a suppressed M4 like he's out there on special operations. Are you fucking kidding me? The fucking lawyer. The lawyer with a standing making a pose, obviously in the green zone. In the green zone because his M4 had no magazine in it. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. I showed that to you many times before. George, go ahead, George. We're well over fucking time. Do you need to fucking be quick? You're part of the reason why I'm over fucking time, George.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So, among other things, he got DeSantis got his undergrad degree from Yale, where he's a member of St. Elmo's Club. So, as I mentioned to you before, his younger sister, Christine, died back in 2015. I don't have the date in front of me, but like around her 30th birthday of like some sort of rare disease. So, he's been portrayed in the last few years as the white hat, but he's very much on their team.
Not only does this fucking clown tote a suppressed M4, it's a fucking dual tone. This piece of shit had all of the fucking best. This green zone lawyer fuck had all of the best fucking gear. To be a fucking lawyer. Who the fuck? Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
The average person looks pretty badass.
Right. If you're not thinking, wow. What a hero. What a hero. And let's hit that again, George. Thank you. We'll hit it again. The sister with the mysterious death.
Christine, she died back in 2015 at about 30 or so. I'm sure Hawk can probably look up all the details. But she died over in England. And she was his only sister. Now, for what it's worth, his full name is Ronald Dion DeSantis. It was named after the pop singer for the 1960s, Dion DiMucci. Or he got his middle name.
Are you sure it's not Dijon?
Well, actually, that was the brother who died.
Yeah. That reminds me of the what is that Roman Catholic cockroach in the Northwest Territory of Australia? Was it Michael Patrick Francis Gunner? That piece of shit whose daddy had sex with the Aboriginal girl and fathered a bastard child. that showed up and then mysteriously died years after showing up and embarrassing the family. And then right after that, Michael Patrick Francis Gunner shot into notoriety to become the little tin dictator of the Northwest Territory and fuck people and send people to the Howard Springs coronahoax concentration camp. And the mass murder, granted, that's a little bit of hyperbole on my end, but certainly to mass intimidate and almost certainly be an impetus for murder of the Aboriginal population there. Mass intimidate, and that piece of shit. Who is that piece of shit there that you cannot catch a virus?
Tom Barnett.
Well done. Yeah. Tom Barnett. George, thank you, George. Well done. Tom Barnett. Tom Barnett has looked into this controversy, and he said that they were using the army to bring these people food. Stop, you lying piece of shit. The people had their own fucking food. They don't need the army. It's the fucking government that put guns in their face and said, you're not leaving to make your own food, to get your own food. And then the army delivers them their pizzas and their fluoridated water. What the fuck do you think the average Aboriginal is going to be scared shitless? And then the same soldier tells them, take this shot. What the fuck do you think? You mealy-mouthed lying fuck. You mealy-mouthed lying fuck. Oh, we looked into this, nothing going on. It's actually a bunch of conspiracy theory. You lying piece of shit. All right, I'm done. Anybody else? I reached out. There was an Aboriginal contact out there. Reached out to him, got ignored, of course. Forget his fucking name. David something or other. Got ignored by that fucking guy too. No real contact anyway. So I can't even say that he saw my reaching out and ignoring me. All right. Don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll see. I guess I'm back. We'll see if we broadcast tomorrow. Excuse me. I'll attempt to do same time, same place. Now that I have to pare this down, pain in my ass. All right. Be strong and courageous because resistance is rising. Love you guys. Thank you for everything. Much love to everybody in the audience. Special love, special shout out to my friends and collaborators here. Guys, be blessed. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Be strong and courageous. Take care.